Listen up, because this is going to sound absolutely ridiculous. But then again, most of humanity's greatest achievements sound ridiculous right up until they save everyone's collective bacon. Every spaceship in the known galaxy has one, an empty seat. Not just any empty seat, the empty seat right there at the main conference table, dead center, with a perfectly polished nameplate that reads exactly nothing. Zero. Zilch. Most alien species find it somewhere between hilarious and infuriating. Humans? We just smile that particular smile that says we know something you don't. And boy, do we know something. Captain Marcus Rivera had heard every possible joke about the empty seat. During his 23 years of deep space exploration, he'd fielded questions from at least 17 different alien civilizations, each more confused than the last. The Zorgnak diplomatic corps once spent 3 standard weeks trying to determine if it was some kind of religious artifact. The Centauri trade delegation assumed it was an elaborate psychological power play. Neither came close to the truth. Another day, another potential interstellar incident, Marcos muttered, adjusting the collar of his deep blue expedition uniform. His first officer, Elena Rodriguez, didn't even look up from her quantum navigation console. She knew that tone. It was the something weird is about to happen tone. "How many times do I have to tell you?" Elena said, her fingers dancing across holographic displays. "Weird is our baseline out here. We're humans. Weird is what we do best." The USS Serendipity wasn't the newest exploration vessel in the fleet, but she was reliable. Reliable like an old hunting dog that might look scraped and worn, but would absolutely destroy anything threatening her pack. Her hull bore the scars of a dozen unexpected encounters, each one a testament to human adaptability. The empty seat watched. Always watching. Their current mission was straightforward: survey a newly discovered solar system on the Orion Arm's trailing edge. Standard protocol. Standard expectations, which meant something was absolutely going to go spectacularly wrong. And then it did. It did. The quantum disruption hit like a metaphorical truck, not a literal truck. We're in space after all. But if space had trucks, this would have been a monster truck driven by a caffeine-addicted rhinoceros. Alarms screamed. Consoles flickered. The entire ship vibrated with an energy that felt suspiciously like the universe was clearing its throat and preparing to tell a very long joke. "Status," Marcos barked. "Completely abnormal," Elena responded, which was about as specific as she ever got during a crisis. "Something's interfacing with our systems. But it's not acting like any known technological signature." That's when the empty seat started to glow. Not a subtle glow. Not a maybe you're seeing things glow. We're talking a full-on, nuclear-powered, I'm about to do something absolutely bonkers kind of glow. The nameplate flickered. Symbols appeared, ancient symbols. Symbols that predated human space exploration by millennia. Symbols that looked like they'd been waiting for exactly this moment. "Oh," Elena said, her voice a mix of scientific fascination and pure, unadulterated what the actual heck. "This is going to be interesting." "Interesting." "Right. Humans have a long, proud history of turning interesting into holy crap, we survived that. It's basically our entire evolutionary strategy. Other species develop camouflage. We develop sarcasm and the ability to MacGyver solutions out of paperclips and pure audacity. The empty seat was about to become Exhibit A. What happened next would become required learning in every space academy, diplomatic corps, and how not to get killed by the universe training program across known space. A story so perfectly, quintessentially human that alien historians would debate its authenticity for generations. But that's a story for the next chapter, and trust me, you're going to want to hear it, because it all started with an empty seat. An empty seat that was about to prove why every spaceship in the galaxy keeps one, not as a tradition, not as a quirk, but as a lifeline. Humanity's ultimate backup plan. The thing about human survival is that it never looks like survival when it's happening. Most species would see our approach and think, that can't possibly work, which is precisely why it always does. The glowing empty seat continued its light show, Transforming the bridge of the USS Serendipity into something that looked like a disco ball had made passionate love to a quantum physics textbook. Captain Marcos Rivera did what any seasoned space explorer would do. He grabbed his coffee mug, took a long swig, and waited. "I'm going to need more context," Elena muttered, her fingers flying across multiple holographic interfaces. "This is reading like nothing I've ever seen before." The ship's AI, which had the delightfully snarky designation of Gwen, Galactic Exploration Network, chimed in. "Captain, I'm detecting multiple-dimensional resonance frequencies that should be mathematically impossible. So, Tuesday as usual." Marcos snorted. He'd specifically programmed Gwen to have exactly this level of sardonic commentary. An AI that took everything too seriously was about as useful as a screen door on a submarine. "Specifics, Gwen," he prompted. "The empty seat is generating a quantum entanglement field that's honestly, Captain, I'm not entirely sure how to describe this without sounding like I'm having an electronic nervous breakdown." That was Gwen's speak for "this is seriously weird, even by our standards." The symbols on the nameplate began to shift, molecular structures dancing in three-dimensional holographic projection. They weren't just random patterns, they were a message. An old message, the kind of message that makes seasoned explorers lean forward and think, "This is going to be good." "It's a recording," Elena breathed. "But not like any recording we've ever seen. It's alive." The symbols coalesced, forming what looked like a historical archive, but not a static archive. This was dynamic, responsive, almost sentient. And then it spoke. Not in words, not in language, but in pure, unfiltered historical experience. The story of why every spaceship keeps an empty seat began to unfold. Millennia ago, during humanity's first true interstellar conflicts, we discovered something remarkable, and not through advanced technology, not through superior weaponry, but through the most human trait possible, unexpected adaptability. In the early days of space colonization, human ships would encounter situations that defied all strategic planning, alien encounters, spatial anomalies, technological challenges that would have crushed any other species. But humans, we improvised. The empty seat wasn't just a seat. It was a living, adaptive problem-solving module. When a critical system failed, the seat would reconfigure. When a crew member was injured, it would transform. When an impossible challenge presented itself, the seat became whatever was needed. Quantum processors, emergency medical bay, communication relay, weapon system, life support backup. The seat was humanity's ultimate survival tool, a physical manifestation of our species' most powerful attribute, the ability to look at an impossible situation and say, "Hold my beer, I've got this." Alien species saw the empty seat and laughed. Humans smiled. Because they knew. An empty seat was never just an empty seat. It was hope. Compressed. Weaponized. Ready. Space has a sense of humor. And by humor, I mean the kind of sick, twisted comedy that makes quantum physicists weep and seasoned explorers drink heavily. The USS Serendipity hung suspended in a region of space that absolutely should not exist. According to every known scientific model, the spatial coordinates they occupied were about as probable as a politician telling the complete, unvarnished truth. "I don't like this," Elena muttered, her hand hovering near the emergency system override. Marcos raised an eyebrow. "Define this." All of this, she gestured broadly at the swirling quantum anomaly outside their view screen. The space around them looked like someone had taken reality, crumpled it into a ball, and then tried to smooth it out using a cheese grater. Gwen's voice cut through the tension. "Incoming transmission. And before you ask, no, it does not make any sense whatsoever." The transmission appeared not on their communication screens, but directly on the empty seat. Holographic symbols danced, twisted, then coalesced into a form that was simultaneously everywhere and nowhere. It was a message, but not a message in any traditional sense. It was a challenge. The holographic projection showed a complex series of interlocking problems, survival scenarios that would make even the most hardened military strategists curl up and whimper. Impossible spatial navigation, quantum entanglement puzzles, survival scenarios that required simultaneous solutions across multiple dimensions. But is that? Marcos squinted. A test. Elena's eyes gleamed with the particular light of someone who lived for impossible challenges. Not just a test. It's the test. Humanity had always been defined by its ability to solve the unsolvable, to look at a problem that should crush them and instead view it as an interesting afternoon project. Other species developed specialized tools for specific challenges. Humans developed something far more dangerous. We developed creativity. The empty seat began to pulse. Not with light, not with energy, but with potential, with possibility. Gwen, Marcos said slowly, start analyzing those transmission parameters. Elena, prepare for, well, whatever the hell this is going to be. The challenge hung in the air, waiting, watching, but daring them to fail. Some species spend millennia developing specialized technology. Humans? We look at a problem, laugh, and then solve it with whatever happens to be lying around. The challenge projected by the empty seat wasn't just a test. It was a goddamn symphony of impossibility. I'm detecting quantum resonance frequencies that shouldn't exist in any known dimensional model, Elena announced, her voice a mix of scientific excitement and pure, unadulterated confusion. Marcos took another swig of coffee. Translation? We're being asked to solve a problem that breaks literally every rule of physics we currently understand. Gwen chimed in, her synthetic voice dripping with what could only be described as electronic sarcasm. Captain, the good news is that this challenge is theoretically impossible. The better news is that impossible is humanity's favorite starting point. The empty seat began to transform. Not physically, that would be too straightforward. Instead, it started generating holographic interfaces that wove through the bridge like living information, like quantum equations, spatial navigation charts, survival scenarios that would make a chess grandmaster weep. The true history of the empty seat began to unfold. It wasn't just a piece of furniture. It wasn't even just a technological marvel. And it was humanity's ultimate survival mechanism. Generations ago, during the first true interstellar conflicts, human explorers discovered something profound. Other species designed specialized tools for specific challenges. Humans designed adaptability itself as a tool. The empty seat was the physical manifestation of that principle. A quantum processor that could reconfigure itself instantaneously. A living, breathing problem-solving module that didn't just react to challenges, it anticipated them. It predicted them. Transformed before the challenge even fully materialized. It's running multiple dimensional simulations simultaneously, Elena breathed. Not just running them. Creating them. Marcos watched as the seat projected scenarios, survival situations that required solving multiple impossible problems at once. Navigation through quantum storms, communication across dimensional barriers, survival strategies that would make theoretical physicists question their entire understanding of reality. We're not just being tested, Marcos realized. We're being evaluated. Gwen's response was immediate. Correction, Captain. We're being remembered. The seat was collecting data. Not just about their current performance, but about human potential. Every decision. Every moment of creativity. Every time they looked at an impossible situation and said, "Hold my coffee." The challenge intensified. The holographic interfaces began to pulse with an almost living energy. Marcos noticed something else. The seat wasn't just presenting problems. It was teaching. Showing them how to think beyond limitations. How to see solutions where others saw only chaos. Humanity's ultimate survival strategy wasn't advanced technology. It was the ability to laugh in the face of the impossible. Some moments define a species. This was one of them. The bridge of the USS Serendipity transformed into a living problem-solving machine. The empty seat was no longer empty. It was a quantum nexus of pure human potential. Marcos and Elena moved with a synchronicity that defied traditional understanding of teamwork. Dimensional barrier approaching, Elena called out. Probability of survival, 0.00003%. Marcos didn't even blink. So you're saying we've got a chance? Gwen's voice cut through the tension. Captain, the proposed solution would require simultaneously breaking 17 known physical laws, rewriting 2 quantum mechanics principles, and effectively telling the universe to, and I quote, hold my beer. Sounds like a Tuesday, Marcos responded. The seat pulsed. Not with light, not with energy, but with pure, unadulterated possibility. Humans didn't just solve problems. They redefined what a problem could be. With the dimensional barrier approached, most species would have prepared defensive mechanisms, shields, weapons, escape protocols. The USS Serendipity did something else entirely. They laughed. In that moment of absolute cosmic tension, Captain Marcos Rivera looked at the barrier that should have destroyed them and did the most human thing possible. He grinned. The empty seat exploded with potential. When quantum equations became living things, impossible navigation became a dance. The very fabric of space-time looked at what was happening and briefly considered taking up a different career. And then, silence. Is silence. We're through, Elena said, her voice a mixture of disbelief and pure, scientific joy. Marcos looked at the now quiet empty seat. Gwen, status report? Captain, the AI responded. We didn't just survive, we made the universe blink. The final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. The empty seat wasn't just a survival mechanism. It was a message. A reminder. A testament to humanity's most powerful attribute. The ability to look at the impossible and say, watch this. Every spaceship keeps an empty seat, not as a tradition, not as a memorial, but as a promise. A promise that when everything goes wrong, humanity will find a way to make it spectacularly right. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, an alien historian would later record this moment. They would spend centuries trying to understand how a species could turn the universe itself into a playground. They would fail to understand, because some things can only be understood by humans. The empty seat watches, always watching, ready for the next impossible moment.